All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for calling in. And we still have a few more people joining, so we'll get started here. All right. I think we have everyone in now that's logging in at this point, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning. Just a few updates before I then just turn it over to questions that any of you have about any of the topics. One, I wanted to give you a update on 19 FCSS funding. Yesterday, our fiscal office here received the final documents that they needed to start setting up the FCSS payments into the GFMS system, the Grants and Fiscal Management System. So you may start to see email alerts maybe as early as today, probably not until early next week, that the funds are being set up into the GFMS system. So just a reminder, these email alerts specifically for FCSS they're setting up the shell inside the GFMS system. So you may receive an email alert that said funds are available. That's not entirely true. We're just setting up the payment structure in GFMS, and that will trigger an email to you, or at least at the very least to your administrative agents. And if you, as FCSC coordinators, get those email alerts as well, you'll start to see those early next week. So Tammy is working on the notice of award letters. These letters will contain your county's allocation amount for 19. It'll contain the breakdown of the state GRF funding and then the federal funding. You'll need that for your reporting later on, and then the information on the advancements. And based on the timeline that I'm seeing, is that all of these payments will be processed right around November 15th. So, as I said, you'll start to see the email alerts, and then we'll start to then identify for everyone who has met all the requirements to start getting funding. You probably see those processed around November 15th, which means that you'll have the funds before the end of the month. If your county has already been spending and you have spent above your advance amount, and for those of you sending questions over the last few weeks, and we've been talking about this the last few months, the allocations are identical for 19 as they were in 18. So you'll be able to kind of figure out your advance from that point based on what we provided you last year. So if those counties have been spending and you have spent above your advance amount, you can submit an RR, and then that will probably be processed roughly about the same time as your advance. So I'm guessing everything will come towards the end of the month. So your advance, and if you are requesting reimbursement above your advance amount, then I think all those payments will probably be received at the same time. And for those of you who are submitting RRs that have spent above their advance amount, that RR must be accompanied with the advanced expenditure report informing us of how you spent that advance amount. So all of these documents are embedded into the key dates document that we released maybe about a month and a half ago now. And they're also on our website. So you'll have a couple of different ways that you can access those. And I'm thinking, if I'm not mistaken, usually when you receive the notice of award letter, Tammy attaches the RR form and also the advance expenditure form. So you probably have 3 opportunities to get those documents that you will need. So that's FCSS, and the only other thing that I have before I open it up for questions A quick update on the TANF crisis funds. We have approved one application to date for state fiscal year 2019 funding, and we hope to release a report early next week that details the state fiscal year 2018 spending. The Deputy Directors Group meets later on this afternoon. That draft report is in front of them to approve for release later today. And then if there are a limited number of changes, or if there's any changes that we can just take care of later today, we will get that report out to you early next week and identify where funding was spent, who spent it, and some quick demographics on the youth that were subject to those reimbursement requests. So if you have any questions at any time, if you just want to check to see if an expense is covered, please drop me an email, give me a call. We want to make sure that these dollars are spent as much as they can be based on the limitations of the TANF funding. But if you have any questions at any time, I'm hearing from several of you that there are applications being drafted in the pipeline, and you're just collecting all of the required documentation to be submitted with the application. So we know that more applications will be coming. But if you have any questions, or if you just want to run a scenario past me, I'm more than willing to sit and talk with you through it and make sure that we get all of our questions answered and you get all of your questions answered, and we can figure out whether we can access these funds. So that's all I have for this morning. So I will open it up for any questions that any of you may have.
Chad?
Yes.
Chad.
Go ahead.
On the shared plan, last time we did it, there were some state priorities, and I'm wondering if there is a new list or the same list would be given to us from the state: infant mortality, trauma-informed care, high-need multi-system youth, and employment services for transition-aged youth and young adults.
As far as this administration, those still continue to be priority areas. I don't know what a new administration coming in, what their priorities are going to be. That's about the only guidance I can give at this point. These are still topics that are being worked on through the state departments as they're currently constructed. But I don't know how many of those will be a priority under a new administration with a brand new budget expected probably around late March, early April. So that may be the first glimpses of what we see as far as priorities from the next administration.
Okay.
And we don't have any way of knowing. I mean, we're not anticipating a lot of, or if any, initial turnover in the State Department directors. And honestly, we don't know if any will be back, or maybe a few of them will be back. So we're just working on the priorities that we have right now through the end of their tenure, and then we'll pick it up with new administration and new department leadership moving forward. And I think the budget, when it's released out of the governor's office, probably late March, early April, we'll have our first glimpse of what those priorities are going to be. If you've been following either of the campaigns, either the platforms, I think they've been really upfront about what their priorities are. Both have children's platforms that they want to move forward, especially with early childhood issues, including early childhood education and home visiting. So that maybe give you a little bit of hint on where they're coming from, but we just won't know until we start to see what's going to be in the budget moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chad?
Yes.
At least here in Mahoning County, the notice of award for the FCSS is more important even than getting the monies transferred over. That starts our process in being able to pay vendors. So that's like our priority, is just to get that notice of award to us.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, thank you. Hold on, excuse me, there's a text. Could an email be resent regarding the dispute resolution language changes and due dates? Sure. Yeah, we can get that back out to you. Not a problem.
I was late joining the call, so you may have said this and I missed it. But have you been made aware of this whole thing about the IRS and the FCSS?
No. Can you explain a little bit more?
Okay, so we received an email on the listserv about a week and a half ago that 15 counties in the state of Ohio have had audits with the IRS, and the IRS has had questions about the respite.
Yes. And I took that. I forget what county. I think it was actually someone, maybe Huron County or maybe Erie County. Okay. Yeah, so I talked to leadership here about it, and we sent it to the legal office for review. Okay. And that was earlier this week, and I have not received any response back. But I will check on it later this afternoon when we have our deputy directors meeting.
Because I have to
see
tell
if
you
we can get additional legal opinion on that issue.
Because the three options they gave us, we're not happy with any of the three, and satisfied that the kids will actually get the services. We think they're going to run into more issues. If you run into issues of mismanagement of funds going the three routes that they gave us.
So yes. So for those of you who are not aware, and let me see if I can pull it up real quick on my email. So there was a county, and I'm pretty sure it was Huron County. Yeah, here it is. And they went through a recent audit from the IRS. And in that final audit report, it was stated that many of the independent contractors that they had been working with for years to provide mentoring to parents and youth and in-home support should be classified as respite providers. And then they also found that the providers that their county board of DD uses should also be considered respite providers. And the opinion of the IRS at this point in time says that because the providers are receiving or being paid by government agencies, and because these providers are providing services to the county, we need to pay them in one of three ways. One, pay the family who is getting the care, place the provider on the payroll as an employee, or then have the provider work for a temporary employment agency. When I had the initial conversation with leadership, they weren't happy with any of those either. So it was decided to send it to our legal representatives to look at and to provide another kind of like a second opinion and see if there's anything that can be done with that. I have not heard back from that request, but I will check on it later this afternoon. So if you haven't heard from the IRS, based on the information that I received, that so far about 15 counties have been audited by the IRS, and in the coming months, every county will have an audit completed. So we will get you an update on where we stand on that as soon as I possibly can.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Hey, Chad. I've never been through an IRS audit before. Can you tell us is this like the state's audit when they do our regular audit?
No, this is where the IRS comes in and looks at all the county funds. So I don't know how much more in detail that is. I never went through one either, so I'm not sure. But it looks like they do more of a forensic review of spending and how funds are spent, and then who funds, where funds are provided. Usually what we see in a state audit, for lack of a better term, is testing on policies and procedures on how bills get paid. So they're testing the approval process, they're testing timelines, and so on and so forth. From what my understanding is that this is more of a forensic review on dollars, how they are spent, and where they are going. So I think they're taking a look at like almost everything that the county is utilizing as far as spending. So I can't provide you with any more detail other than that because I haven't experienced either, but this is what I've been able to learn so far, which is not much. So I hope to have more information when I hear back from our legal representation, hopefully within the next few days.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
And Chad, just for clarification, when they're talking independent contractor, that's with an individual versus with an agency?
Correct.
Okay.
So if you're paying an individual RESPA provider, or say you're contracting with a foster care, therapeutic foster care, they would be considered independent contractors. And the major issue that we're seeing is how those independent contractors should be handled as far as getting payments. And those three options are really concerning because we don't believe any of those three should be the case with these. And secondary, we're trying to get to the issue of why everyone should be considered a RESPA provider, even if they're providing mentoring or peer supports or anything like that. So we're looking at two different issues. This really came out of the blue, so we're really kind of struggling to get up to speed on this.
Chad, I had an issue on another question on another issue.
Sure.
In terms of the peer support specialist and Medicaid, can you keep us updated on where the conversation's going there in terms of payment? If they have any kind of charges in the past.
Can you restate that question, please?
Sure. So I guess there's conversation that's begun whether that Medicaid may not reimburse peer support specialists if they have any like criminal charges in the past. Which you know.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So can you keep us updated on where that conversation's going at the state level and with Medicaid?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So I will continue to work on the IRS questions, and then we had the request about the dispute resolution. I'll write that down before I forget, and we'll get those materials back out to you. Oh, and there's one more question that came in. Hold on just a second. Oh, okay. All right, folks. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend, and when I have updates on any of these topic areas, I will pass them along.
Thank you, Chad.
Thanks. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Thanks.